Okay, so to save us some time in class, I'm going to flip out the notes on Japan. Um, Japan, as you know, was on the losing end of World War II. They had to unconditionally surrender to the United States and the Allies. But we learned a thing or two from the Treaty of Versailles. So even though we bombed two of their major cities and completely destroyed them, on top of all the carpet bombing that we did, we helped to rebuild them as well. So their armed forces were disbanded. They can only have uh, enough of a military to defend their archipelago if necessary, but not enough to launch a full scale attack on another area. And they did also establish a constitutional monarchy, which is a really big deal because, if you think of how their government was organized before that, you had the emperor, the shogun, the daimyo, the samurai, up until the Meiji, Emperor Meiji. But, the emperor was a god. He was seen as infallible. He could do no wrong. So when he unconditionally surrendered to the United States and the Allies, that was a devastating blow for the country of Japan. But, it worked out for them. They did become an economic superpower. It's helpful when you don't have to spend money on your military. I mean, if you think of if the United States could not spend money on its defense and invest all of that money into its development, we'd have a pretty kick-ass economically stable area too. But they had an extremely favorable balance of trade. Their goods were built for primarily export, which means they were exporting more than they were importing, and actually they were really limiting the amount of imports that they were allowing in, to the point where the United States got a little, and Western Europe, France and Britain got a little frustrated. Why are you limiting us? We're supposed to be in this together. You should not be putting such a stronghold on our imports into your country. So this trade deficit for the United States was actually a trade surplus for Japan. And I'm sure you recognize, these insignias here, right? This is Mitsubishi, this is Toyota, this is Honda. And these are just Japanese car companies. And I'm sure you're also familiar with Sony. Sony is an interesting corporation. It's a multinational corporation, meaning it's not just based in Japan, right? It's got it's located all over the world. And the founder of Sony, when he started to trade with the United States, and he started to come to the United States and meet businessmen, well, primarily businessmen at the time, he was shocked on the mobility that employees in American companies had. Like the fact that, you could be with a company for 10 or 20 years and then actually move your position or move to another company. Companies would merge together to create new companies. And so this was completely unheard of in Japan at that time. So when he came back home from the U.S., he encouraged experienced middle-aged employees of other companies to say, hey, is this really what you want to do? And maybe you want to join Sony instead. So the company continued to build and build and build. And, Sony actually ended up becoming a major player in the development of Japan as a powerful exporter in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and actually Sony helped to significantly improve American perceptions of made in Japan products because, quite honestly, if you think about the United States in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, that's not that far removed from World War II. So some people didn't want to buy from Japan. They thought the stuff coming out of Japan was cheap and the quality was poor. And honestly, it was Japan. It was their, it was their nemesis during World War II. So the nemesis part was more the older generation. The younger generation, it was, it was seen as low quality goods. But eventually they become known for their transistor radios and then PlayStation, and like they just keep building and growing and growing. So they were a pretty epic multinational corporation. Now recently, recently the United States is saying, "Hey Japan, you want to assume the cost of your own defense? It's been like what 70 years since the end of the war, and a lot of its Asian neighbors are saying, whoa, 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 are we sure we want Japan to have that?" And Japan itself is even divided on it. You have some Japanese saying, yeah, we should have control of our military. We shouldn't be reliant on the United States for that. We should be, it's like a very nationalistic idea. And others are saying, yeah, but then we'd have to pay for it, and that would just be crazy. So it's an interesting debate that's still happening. And if you remember when we did the rape of Nanjing, within the last 10 years, Tokyo City Schools got a new textbook, and in that textbook, they downplayed what the Japanese did in Nanjing at the start of the Second World War. And a lot of Chinese were very offended by that, as they should be, because, all those trophies, quote unquote trophies that we saw, those records that, or again, trophies that were taken, pictures that were taken, and images that we have from the rape of Nanjing. So there's still tensions there. There's tensions between Japan and North Korea, because of proximity and the nuclear threat that North Korea could become if that does in fact happen. So, all right, just quick stuff on Japan. I know it's less than 7 minutes, but I just wanted to say that 7 minutes in class. If you have any questions, email me or stay after. Thank you.